Welcome to this edition of City Beat with James Freed, the city manager of the city of Port Huron. James, always great to talk to you. This is a special one.
Yeah.
10 years on the job. So let's go back to 2014 as you were interviewing for the job and then starting the job in early June. What intrigued you? I know you had some background here, but what intrigued you about the job as city manager of Port Huron?
So I spent a lot of time in my childhood here. I grew up, went to Port Huron schools. I had a really, really good childhood. A lot of opportunities. I tell folks I grew up poor, but I never knew it because we always had so many opportunities. I had a wonderful school. I went to Port Huron schools. I had a wonderful school experience. I remember the water. So I'm a young city manager. I was running 2 different municipalities in the west side of the state under a shared service agreement. I started out as the village manager in Lakeview, then I took over the county seat there under the first of its kind shared service agreement where a city manager would run 2 different cities at the same time, but that came out of the '08 budget crisis out of necessity. So the opportunity to advance my career, but also to come home. At that point I was 29 years old. I was married and we knew we were going to have kids and settle down. And so where do you want to raise your kids? Where do you want to start a family? And it was pretty obvious to me, I want to go back to Port Huron and raise my family there. And so interviewing for the job, it felt incredibly natural. It was such a good fit. The mayor and council were just very dynamic at that time and really solid people. I've been blessed to have Mayor Rep as our mayor. For the 10 years I've been here, she's just an incredible person to work with. Her knowledge, her ability to stay civil in times of chaos. So I've learned a lot from Mayor Rep. But yeah, it's been just the opportunity to come back, and I'm glad I did. It's just been a wonderful ride. Not sure I knew what I was getting myself into. And we talk about that, but it was just a fantastic opportunity.
Actually, that's a great follow-up question. Are there things that you wish you'd known as you took the job or didn't know that you learned quickly? What were some of those things that you found out? Oh boy.
I tell people maybe it's best I didn't know. So I would come in and they send me when I got the job, I had all the budgets and audits, everything sent to me. And so I literally was on my back deck at my previous home, cracked a beer, started opening up the audits. And just on a summer evening or May evening going through the audits, and what I found was pretty alarming. So I thought, well, I must be reading this wrong. I'll wait till I get there. So I bring in the finance team and I sit them down. I said, okay. I said, I'm going to start speaking and you tell me when I'm wrong so I know to stop. I said, it appears to me that the general fund has hemorrhaged, $15 million. The utilities have lost close to $30 million. Looks like you're going to have a cash on hand issue and a net position issue in 27 to 36 months. No one's stopping me. And I looked at my finance team.
They're going, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're at. I'm like, okay. At that time, we had more than $1 million deficit in the general fund. We had a $2.7 million projected deficit in the utilities. We had massive bills with the sewer separation project. It was a $173 million project. How are we going to pay for that? The bonds were coming due. So it was one of those things where, we triaged it. We moved quickly. I always tell people, leading in a time of crisis is sometimes easier because the mission is defined, right? We have to tackle these tasks. And so we had to immediately triage the utility deficits because the deficits in the utilities were causing our bond rating to be decreased. So for 3 years previous to me coming to the city of Port Huron, S&P, Moody's, and Fitch all downgraded the city. 3 different downgrades, which is pretty significant. And people say, well, why does that matter? Well, it's just like borrowing money for your home or your car. Your credit score affects your interest rate. And so when you have $170 million in debt, the interest rate is pretty important on making sure that it's affordable and finding a way to pay for things. And so we made some very difficult decisions. We have reduced our general fund budget by $1 million immediately. Try being the new kid on the block and showing up cutting $1 million of general fund. And then you're in this situation where how do you balance the budget but protect core services as well? And so we took care of our general fund, we protected core services, we moved to the utilities, we had to do a water and sewer rate increase, which is never popular. I remember in August of that year, I took a walk with my wife and I said, if I do what's necessary and what has to be done to avoid bankruptcy or insolvency, I said, they're probably going to run me out of town. And my wife and I said, well, it's been a fun summer, but we have to do this. We didn't have a choice. And so we made a lot of unpopular decisions, but they were good policy decisions. And what I'm very grateful for is that the mayor and council focused on the good policy decisions rather than political decisions. And that doesn't happen in communities across the state. We've seen communities like Oak Park, Flint, Detroit need emergency managers and go into bankruptcy because nobody can make the difficult decisions. I always tell people, indecision and inaction is a decision, and there's consequences to indecision.
And those of us who have done large budgets,
Yep.
you and I both, the longer you put off a decision, the worse the
Correct.
problem gets.
And when the next issue we tackled was unfunded liabilities. We had more than $100 million of unfunded pension liabilities and healthcare liabilities. For every dollar we pay an employee, 90 cents of that had to go into the fringe benefit fund. 90 cents. Out of the 90 cents, only about 36 cents were for the actual current employees. The rest of that cost? Legacy cost. It was an unseen tax on the next generation. And so for every dollar we were able to reduce our unfunded liabilities, that's $2 our kids will have to build their own future. And so the unfunded liability issue was a great moral question of our time. Are we going to saddle our kids with the unfinished business of the past, or will we show the political and moral courage necessary to solve these challenges so that our kids can use their resources to build their own future? And we did that. We had more than $28 million in concessions from our unions. We were able to refinance our obligation, our unfunded liabilities. We saved the taxpayers a total of $114 million. That's $114 million that Lucy and Annie and your grandkids will have to build their own future. That's not happening across the state of Michigan. We see cities all over across the state of Michigan, cities just to the south of us, who didn't deal with the unfunded liability issues when they had time. And I tell folks, it's like landing a plane. When you decide you're going to land, or you're going to restructure your unfunded liabilities before the crisis hits, before there's a cash on hand issue, which we were about 27 months away from insolvency. And I remember sitting in the governor's office with the treasurer, and the speaker of the House, and we needed a legislative fix at the time. And I worked with the legislature and the governor to get that done in 2018 and 17. But I told them, I said, we need a landing path. You need a glide path to land. And any restructuring takes a workout period. And what I meant by the glide path was the workout period. So you make your changes, you restructure, but then you need a workout period to go in for a smooth landing on the restructuring. And so we hit it at the right time. When we refinanced our pension obligation bonds, we were able to do so at 2.25%, which is unreal, unheard of today. And so it was just a fantastic collaboration between the public, the labor groups, and good market conditions, but also the public safety and parks millage. That was a huge contract we made with our residents, that if you pass a public safety millage and you pass a parks millage, we're going to honor the levels of public safety. We're going to increase, at that time, we increased manpower in our police department because at that time we were dealing with the opioid crisis and we had a lot of crime from that. And so look at where we are today. We're now, I believe, close to 6-7 years past the millages were approved. Historic record low crime rates. All across every year, double-digit decreases in crime rates in the city. Port Huron is safer today than it has been since the 50s and 60s. It is one of the safest communities in Michigan. The data shows that. But look at what we do with Parks and Recreation. We took the millage money and we leveraged that. For every dollar we spent of millage money, we leveraged it for $2 to $3 in state grants and private sector grants, philanthropy grants. So we worked with Wilson Foundation, we worked with the DNR, we worked with the Stebbins Family Fund, who's done so much in the city, to do more than $4 million of investment into our parks. And the parks are critical because it's quality of life. So you can't just have a city that's financially stable. You need to have a city that's vibrant with a sense of place. And investing in our Parks and Recreation has created that. And we're now seeing strong demands to live in those neighborhoods. Homes that sold for $50,000 to $60,000 now sell for $100,000 to $160,000. We see record investments of people investing in their homes. And the reason for that is we created 2,000 new jobs. More than $500 million of new investment in the community in just the last 5 years. $500 million. New high-tech manufacturing, new skilled trades jobs, all throughout the community. And that means that moms and dads are finding opportunity and prosperity. So not only can you come and live in a community that's run well, financially stable, with a stable tax environment, you can buy a good quality home in a safe neighborhood next to a vibrant and beautiful park and raise your family. And so because of that, we see our community growing in vibrancy and in population. So It was a lot to take in my first couple of years here, but I feel like we've had a pretty good glide path.
So that period from 2014 to 2016 or 2017, and you alluded to the meeting with the governor. As you come out of that, then it's less like you had probably a whole wall filled with we need to do this and this and this and this. Coming out of that, then is it a little bit of a like, oh, okay, breathe again, but then you have to look at what's next.
No, now not really. It's now catch up. So. Yeah. We've dealt with the unfunded, we've dealt with the deficits, we've dealt with the operational issues, we've restructured the unfunded liabilities. Now it's how do you build a vibrant community? So infrastructure, water and sewer infrastructure. We're replacing miles and miles of water line and sewer line every single year. Roads. We have replaced, I think it was yesterday in the Times Herald, 4 miles of neighborhood roads are getting repaved. We rebuilt Gratiot Ave, McMorran Ave, Michigan Ave. We repaved 3 miles and 4 miles the years before. We've done close to 15 to 20 miles of new roadway in just the last 3 years. And we're doing a complete streets initiative as well. So we're not just rebuilding the road, we're rebuilding the water and sewer lines underneath it. We had water main we were replacing last year that was from 1980. Excuse me, 1890.
Yeah.
Water
so
main from
130 years old.
130 years old water mains from 1890 that we were replacing. And so this is about providing people with quality, safe drinking water. We have some of the best quality water in the state of Michigan. We test every single month, but those results are on our website, and you can see that we have some of the finest quality water in the state. And so how do we protect that? How do we make sure that continues? And so it's really playing catch up with the infrastructure. Making sure that we do placemaking, economic development, working with industries to continue growing. So we have tremendous momentum, and there's no time to just take your foot off the gas. Yeah. Like, okay, we've solved the crisis, now it's time to build back better and to build a more vibrant community. And so we're all systems a go. I mean, there's really no moment of pause because really the stakes are just too high.
Knowing you, you're conservative.
Yep.
And so some of this, it seems to fly in the face of because people generally don't understand that with government, you get what you pay for.
Yep.
So if you want low taxes, you don't get all the services you want. So there's that balance there.
Yep.
So how does your conservative nature balance with that?
So one is we properly rein in the role of government, specifically making sure we want to be pro-growth, pro-business, okay? So doing business in the city of Port Huron should be easy. We want to be the easiest place to do business. We want the easiest place to start a business, create jobs. We want to be the easiest place to invest capital because that's important to make sure that government knows its lane and stays in it. And then when government is expected to do a task, whether that's building permits, inspections, that it does so efficiently and does so with civility. We're pretty much mastercraft that. Government doesn't create prosperity. Government doesn't create jobs, but we can do a lot to create a conducive environment where the private sector can do that. So
it's creating climate, isn't it?
Yeah, we're gardening here. We're economic gardening. We're creating infrastructure that can sustain new jobs. For instance, we're producing on average 8 million gallons of water a day. We can produce 30 million gallons of water a day. So when we're going to companies who are high water users, we can tell them we have the capacity. Right now you read about other places in the state that can't attract new companies because they can't meet the utility demands. We have heavy power. We have massive wastewater and water capabilities. So we're marketing it like, hey, bring your company here. We're ready to bring you online now. Making sure that we have good streets and reliable streets and infrastructure that people can drive down the road and get to work. Public transit, make sure we have strong public transit so we can get workers to the jobs. Blue Water Transit does an excellent job. As you know, it used to be a component unit of the city. So then also public-private partnerships, meaning how can we work with philanthropy, the private sector, and government to pull off big projects. So if you look at the Wrigley Center, that was an obsolete building that we were able to do a brownfield tax capture, tax increment financing on that to help create the financing necessary to redevelop that project. Now you have 36 lofts, vibrant businesses in there. You look at, we're doing the same thing with the Harrington. We're trying to bring the Harrington back online. A lot of the new businesses we brought to the industrial park, we were able to do that by working with them on, you bring new equipment in or you build onto your company, we'll give you a 10-year tax abatement, we'll give you a 12-year tax abatement, whatever it takes to get those jobs here. We used to chase jobs. Now we chase workers. The biggest challenge we face right now in the city is a worker shortage. And so that's why we're focusing on housing. How do you attract workers to your community if there's not homes that they can afford or housing options that they can afford? So The chicken or the egg? It's the egg. You need the houses for people to live in. And so a real focus of our administration is affordable workforce housing, making sure that we can onboard more housing. And it's not just workforce housing or affordable housing. We need an all of the above approach. We need single family homes, we need condos, we need lofts, we need apartments, we need everything. So you'll see the McNeil Creek development, that was a partnership with the county to take that old county property, build infrastructure there. Now we have 5 brand new homes getting built up, and I think they have 14 more going in the next year. So that's new housing stock. We've had more than 300 new lofts and apartments in downtown, working with creating Oprah districts, which are tax incentives to rehabilitate old buildings to put these lofts in. So it's an all of the above strategy, but we're not just taking swings. There is a strategic plan here to onboard housing, to bring workers, to fill the jobs, to create vibrant places within our downtown placemaking where people want to live. We want to be a community of choice. We want when I chose to move back here, I want people to choose to move to Port Huron because of all the positive things we have going on. And look at our school systems. We have fantastic schools. The voters of this community invested more than $105 million in our schools. We have a world-class early childhood center sitting over at the Crawl Elementary. Just amazing what's going on in the community.
So we've talked about the last 10 years. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll talk about vision.
Yes.
In your vision for the future when we return. As we continue with City Beat with James Freed in just a moment.
Lake Huron Medical Center, our dedicated staff are committed to providing comprehensive care that meets your individual needs. We take time to listen to your concerns, understand your needs, and develop a customized treatment plan just for you. Trust in our expertise, experience our compassion, and let us be your partner in achieving optimal health. Visit us today and discover the Lake Huron difference.
Semco Energy Gas Company is dedicated to you with a focus on customer service and fuel today for a sustainable tomorrow. Semco Energy works hard to make your time with family and friends warm and cozy. Semco Energy Gas Company. Natural gas works for Michigan.
Welcome back to City Beat. It's our pleasure today to talk to James Freed, City Manager of Port Huron. And James, we've spent the first half of the show talking about the past and even prior to you getting the job. Let's look to the future now. So a couple of short-term, couple of long-term things that you would really like to do in the next, say, year or two, and then maybe 5 to 10 years out.
So my broad vision is, how do we make Port Huron a more inclusive community? Our strategy for growth is going to have to be bringing outsiders in, okay? And so how do we make people want to move here, want to live here? And that's everything from being an inclusive community to being an accessible community. We're constantly investing in our ADA accessibility throughout the city, walkability of our downtown, bikeability of our downtown, making sure that rules and policies are that we're open to all types of backgrounds and all types of walks of life. We've 3 years before the state of Michigan did it, I signed an administrative director implementing LGBTQ protections within our hiring practices and in our operations at the City Hall. We essentially codified them in the Elliott Larson before the state did, 3 years beforehand. That was to send a clear message. If you look at the history of Port Huron, in the late 1800s, we actually surpassed Ellis Island for point of immigration. So if you go back on your 23andMe genealogy test, and you'll actually see a lot of your backgrounds and your families come through Port Huron as port of entry. It's easier to come through Canada and Port Huron. And so how are we welcoming people? How do we develop an immigration strategy for the city that brings in skilled, talented workers from around the world? That's critically important. How do we work with our healthcare facilities, our advanced manufacturing facilities who need the technical visas to bring in the engineers, the doctors, and the nurses here? And so that's a broader strategy that we're having communications with our federal partners and our state partners and our business leaders. When they get here, is there good housing for them? Is there good schools? And so my vision is I want Port Huron to be a place where people can live a quality life. So I want them to have a good home. I want folks to have a really good school. I want kids to be able to walk to a playable park. I want mom and dad to have a good job where they can provide for their family and not have the stress of being short every month. So to do that, how do we continue working with our schools, between the city and the schools, to improve our school system? How do we keep investing in our infrastructure, specifically our parks and recreation? How do we invest in our downtown to make sure that it's a place that people want to be, whether that's the McMorran Plaza with music and entertainment, vibrant restaurants and shops with our work with our DDA, and then how do we make sure that if there are jobs that are technical and advanced, how do we make sure that the workers of today have the skill set for the jobs of tomorrow? And we are blessed that we have St. Clair Community College within our borders. That is a huge asset. I would say that St. Clair Community College is probably the top asset the city of Port Huron has right now, because we're talking about all the high-tech jobs of the future, and other communities are trying to figure out how we're going to retool and retrain. SC4 is already doing that. So how do we partner with MEDC and SC4 to make sure that the programs are available? I think what's really cruel is you have a job that pays well, and it requires just a little bit of training, but then we don't have an opportunity for our moms and dads to get that training, to provide for their families. There has to be a nexus there. And so how do we continue fostering those partnerships to make sure that the American dream that I had is still within reach for the next generation? I think about my life, and the reason why I wanted to come back to Port Huron is because I didn't grow up with a lot, but I had rich opportunities. I honestly never knew I was poor until I was about high school, when I started figuring out name brand clothes were different. But I had teachers who told me I could be an astronaut and a lawyer. Turns out that wasn't true, but a city manager was a good option.
Yeah. The bar was.
Yeah, I'm not going to be an astronaut. But it's like the opportunity I had, I was able to walk to quality parks. I mean, I had such a rich childhood and rich opportunities, and that's the American dream. Not everyone's going to have equal outcomes, but I want equal opportunity. I want those kids to have the same opportunities I did. I don't believe in this farce that the American dream is dead and the American dream is not within reach of the next generation. I don't believe it has to be that way. I'm not willing to concede the future that easily. Too many people are ready to throw in the towel and say, "Oh, it's never going to be as good as it was back when our parents had it." I don't believe that. I believe that the world is getting better. I believe that Port Huron is getting better. I believe that the state of Michigan can get better. We just have to tackle some big challenges and make sure we do so holistically across the state of Michigan. So I'm not ready to throw in the towel yet. I believe that tomorrow will be better. I believe that the moms and dads in our communities see it and feel it. People feel that it's getting better. They see it's getting better. And they know that the future is going to be better here. And so my vision is just the basics of life. Make sure that people have a quality job, good housing, safe streets, the fundamentals of good government. It's really not that crazy of a new idea to make sure we just get the fundamentals right. And so my conservative beliefs is that government needs to focus on the basics. We need to be the mastercraft of the basics. Financially, good running, make sure the trains run on time, make sure our police and fire have what they need, make sure our recreation and public works have what they need to build a sound community so that free people, free enterprise, and free markets can do what they do best, and that's build a hopeful future.
We're in an era where it's very easy on multiple fronts to criticize.
Yep.
And to criticize government, to criticize the city manager.
Yep.
Facebook, Twitter, places like that where seemingly somebody can put something out there. And I know you've faced a lot of that. I think anybody in a public seat like we've had has faced that. One of the things I admire about you personally is that you don't duck that.
Yep.
You respond in that with just facts. But what do you wish people knew that are critical of James Freed, either personally or whatever?
Yeah,
what do you wish they knew about you?
It's the burden of leadership, number one. The people who know me know my integrity, know my character. I tell folks, this is what, when you're the man in the arena, this is what happens. People attack you. The politics of division is just so tempting and irresistible. People love to just throw fire at people. I'm not here in borrowed clothes. The people of this community know me well. They know who I am. Mm-hmm. They know where I stand. When I act, they know my reasons. When I speak, they know my heart. And that's based on the integrity. So the background noise of social media and things like that doesn't bother me, because the things is my feelings, I don't have time for my feelings to be hurt. We have real issues that affect real people in their real lives, and there's too much at stake. And so you keep your head down or keep your head up and you get the job done. Because the consequences of not doing the job or faltering are just too great. I don't have the luxury of having a woe is me party every night and reading comments on social media. I have to make difficult decisions. We have to lead in difficult times because people are relying on us. And so, it really doesn't affect me, to be quite frank. I tell people you want to have thick skin, but you don't want to have alligator skin. You don't want to become numb. And so you take the criticism, and sometimes it's fair criticisms. There's policy decisions we've made that maybe we could have done better. There's policy decisions that we've made that are difficult, and people don't like them, and that is fair criticisms, and you need to receive that. We just had a public hearing last night over snow removal on a streetscape, and business didn't want it. They were really upset, and we changed course and deviated. And so, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's part of the job, but I focus on my 2 little girls and my wife at home. I get to go home at night, and it's really hard to worry about online criticism when you're in the backyard playing with Annie and Lucy and taking on walks and having dinner with my family. I mean, that's what keeps me grounded. My faith, I am a Christian. I believe that we should serve like Christ-like servanthood leadership. And my faith tells me that for such a time as this, I'm the city manager sitting in this chair in these difficult times, having to make difficult decisions and lead. And I believe that, God will give me the strength to get through this and to lead where we need to go. And so, yeah, I focus on the big things in life. It's very trivial in politics. It's very trivial in public life to get focused on the heat of the moment, or some prison inmate felon yells this at you. You can't get focused on that, because at the end of the day, there's moms and dads who are just going about their daily lives, asking, you and I, what are we doing to help them out? What are we doing to help their families out? And so we got to stay focused on that. And a lot of people ask, why me, why us, and why now? And the only answer I have is that Providence has placed us in this moment in time, and the task is ours to do, and we will do it. So I will tell you, I have never been in a more loving community. I don't see the hatred. I don't see the nastiness, because I see the overwhelming love and kindness of people. When you go to the grocery store and we're out to dinner, the people in this community are generally soft, tender, loving, and caring people. We're just in a great community. My family has been embraced with loving arms by our neighbors, by our friends, by strangers we don't even know. The letters I get written to my office from people I don't know, thanking me as if somehow, this is a privilege. I'm thanking them. This is a privilege to serve as city manager. The letters I get from strangers every day, encouraging me and my family, the random people at the grocery store who stop me, I have never felt such love in my life. And so I guess I don't see like you're in a nasty time and a hostile environment. Yeah, if you're trolling around in that environment, you'll see what you want and get what you want. I choose to see the overwhelming loving and kindness of our people.
Well, you know what you just described? You described true leadership.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's those of us who've been in public offices, you're going to face scrutiny.
Yep.
You're going to face negativism. So when you make a decision, it sounds like you just keep your eye on where you want to go, where you need to go.
There's consequences.
Right.
When you're in a position of leadership like this, I don't want to take the moment for granted, and I don't want to squander it. I don't want to look back and say I could have done more. I could have pushed the community further into the future had I just not done this. And so I don't want to look back and say I squandered the moment or I took it for granted. I have too much respect for the citizens of this city to do that. And so every day I'm up at 4:45. I'm in the office right around 6:30, 7 o'clock, trying to make sure we set the agenda. And a leader sets the agenda, a leader sets the vision. And so make sure we have an organization and a culture that is consistently pursuing excellence for the residents of this city.
And I think people need to remember you live in the city.
I do. This is home.
And you want what's best for your family in the city of Port Huron.
I tell people I'm building the city I want Annie and Lucy to grow up in. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing this for my kids and your kids and everyone out there who's watching.
Yeah. Well, James, it's been a pleasure knowing you the last 10 years.
It's been fun.
And I think we've been in the same arena a lot on decisions that have happened in this area. But I count you as a friend, one, as a respected colleague, two, and congratulations on a great 10 years.
Hopefully I make it another 10.
I hope you do too. You're still young, man.
People keep asking me, when are you going to move on to the next big city? And there's no place I'd rather be. I mean, this is a wonderful place. And I mean, we would go back to Jerry Bouchard stayed for almost his entire career, and I know why. Yeah. Because it's a great place to live and work and raise your family, and I don't chase greener pastures when I have green pastures here and gorgeous blue water.
And by the way, you have the ability to take us down the road.
Yeah, so
that's the right path.
We're having too much fun. We thoroughly enjoy this. I tell people ask me, how how hard has it been? It's like, I have done this now. I've been a city manager for 17 years, 10 of which have been in Port Huron. Not a single day has gone by where I didn't find complete joy and fulfillment in what I do. Yeah. I love what I do. It is just absolutely a blessing, and I don't struggle.
Thank you, James.
Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on 10 years.
Appreciate it.
As well. And that'll wrap up this edition of City Beat. Thanks again to James Freed for being our guest today, and thank you for watching Thumb Coast Television.